Hi, in this video we will see how to create events in a calendar within SharePoint Online, step by step, a very useful feature to enrich your intranet with corporate events, meaning events that go out to all employees. These can be internal events, external events, marketing events, or the moment when the CEO delivers a message to all colleagues. Or perhaps training events, internal initiatives, teamwork moments, whatever you want. Any communication information that pertains to a specific date. Let's see how to create events within SharePoint Online. Let's move to my PC. Excuse me for a moment, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself, then I'll let you continue. I am one of the Microsoft MVPs and I am an expert in all the technologies revolving around Microsoft 365. So if you want updates on SharePoint, the world of Intranet, perhaps on Teams or Microsoft Copilot, make sure to subscribe to this channel. What you see here is an empty communication site created using the blank site template. If I edit the page, I have the option to add a component called Events. This component allows me to display all upcoming events that have been created within my intranet, such as on the home page. I have various views. I can use this more compact view, or I can use this view with a slider, which shows a list of events that are slightly larger compared to the compact version and are side by side. Obviously, both of these views then adapt to the area in SharePoint Online where I place the component, regardless of the type of section, whether small, medium or large columns. Once the component is placed on the page and the page is published, we then have the possibility to start creating events by clicking on the Add Events button. SharePoint Online then opens a page where I can add the event title, start and end date and time. In this case, I leave it as is. I can also choose to create an all-day event without specifying the time. I can enter the address where the event will take place if it is an in-person event, where everyone meets together. Here, SharePoint Online already provides the map viewing functionality to help participants reach the event more easily. I can also insert a link to invite my colleagues to an online event, complete with a label to choose how the call to action will appear, such as the button they will need to click to access the online event itself, or even more details about the event itself if needed or desired. And then I can add a description along with a list of people who are the participants. They can be the speakers, the presenters, let's call them whatever we want. Here we are. Once this is done, I have the option to save the event and thus effectively publish it within my intranet. Unlike any communication page or any content page within SharePoint Online, where I can usually also include draft functionalities and content approval before the content is visible to everyone, in an event this is generally not typically currently possible unless you implement some custom approval flow, which is generally possible using the tools of the Power Platform, specifically Microsoft Power Automate in this case. Once the event is ready, I can definitely go to the home page and see the event exactly within the component that I have added to the page, and so will all the events that I place next to it, and so on for all the other events. You should also know that all this data is saved within a specific area of your SharePoint site, a calendar list, a list that is created by default every time your site is created. To find where this list is, just go to the site's content area, which you can find at the top right in the gear icon under site content, and you will immediately see the list with the events. If I click on this list, I enter the interface for managing these events, where I immediately find a nice calendar with the event I created earlier. What you see here is still the old interface of SharePoint Online, which nevertheless allows me to add new events by clicking on this link, choose to edit an event by selecting it, delete it, choose permissions, and so on through this command bar up here at the top, okay? As you have seen, creating a new event has a few fewer fields. In this case, I always recommend starting to create a new event within the non-page component rather than within this list. Another option you have is to create a new list that you can utilize, add fields that are of the date and time type, and then create a calendar view in your application or project. This is useful in case the views provided by the events web part are not helpful for you. Let's see the steps to do it. Let's click on the button to create new content. We choose to create a list. Within this pop-up that appears, we no longer find the option to create a calendar list as was possible some time ago, but we simply need to create a new blank list. We can name it whatever we prefer. In this case, I call it calendar. I click on create. As I mentioned in one of the previous videos, every time I create a new list, it only creates the field with the title. By clicking on add column, I have the possibility to add all the types of columns I want and thus define the structure of my data. In this case, I want to add a column of type, date and time, which I will call start date, and in this case I want the time as well. Then I create a second one also of type, date and time, and in this case I will call it end date, and here too I will include the time. Save. In this case, I would like these columns to be mandatory, so I can go and modify the columns that I forgot to set as mandatory earlier. I can click on this area, which allows me to require the user who enters data into this list to provide the data. I click on save. I do exactly the same operation for the second column, and by continuing to add columns, I can continue to enrich the structure of my calendar list. In this case, I add an event. I call it test event, with a date that goes from today to today, but at a different time, let's say 2 p.m. Save, and here is my event. As you can see, this is the classic view we have inside a list, so the data is in a tabular format. However, in SharePoint Online, you have the option to transform a list into a calendar view. Let's see how to do it. We access the configuration area of this list, go down here and choose to create a new view. When I choose to create the new view, I have the option to select the calendar view. The calendar view allows me to name the view, choose the date field we want to use to identify the day and time our events start, and then the end time of our events. In this case, I have set the start date and end date, which are the fields I have configured. Additionally, he asks me what type of field I want to use for the title of my event in the various views. In this case, I always choose the title field in all the settings, even if they are optional. Okay, once this is done, I can click on OK, and here is our calendar view, which as you can see is still in classic mode. That is, the user interface of this calendar area is from a few years ago, not the modern one that has a more refined user experience. Well, those were the steps to create a new calendar list within your SharePoint Online intranet and to add your events useful for your internal communication moments. See you next time.